Hi, I'm Rose Timmons Dawson. I'm here today, May the 20th, 2013, in the Charles Beatley Central Library in Alexandria, Virginia, and I'm going to be interviewing Dr. Gregory Hutchings from the Alexandria City Public Schools. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Gregory Carl Hutchings Jr. I'm 36 years old. Today's date is May the 20th, 2013. We are at the Charles Beatley Library in Alexandria, Virginia. And my relationship to Rose is she's a colleague and friend.
Yes. All right, Greg. Now, you're in Alexandria, correct?
Yes, I am.
And so, what was it like growing up here?
What was it like growing up in Alexandria? I think that growing up here in Alexandria was, for me, a remarkable childhood with the diversity being close to DC. And I felt like it was a very close-knit community. I have a lot of friends and I have some family here in the Alexandria area. But I thought it was really culturally stimulating for
Okay.
me.
Now, well, I don't know a lot about your parents, so were they Alexandrians as well?
No, actually, my mom and dad, my mom is from Dayton, Ohio.
Oh, wow.
And my dad, he was born in Massachusetts. And they actually met in Dayton, Ohio. And what brought them here was my father graduated from Howard University in D.C. And my mother moved here. She actually got pregnant at 17. And in those times, you were forced to get married.
Right.
So she had to marry my dad. And she moved here to the D.C. area with my dad and actually lived in his dorm room for a year with my older sister. And then they eventually moved to Arlington and then Alexandria.
Wow.
So that's how we made it here. But we had family in the area, and I still have an aunt and uncle that live in Alexandria. And they've pretty much they were kind of my dad's family when he came here to go to college. And they remain to be a part of my family now. My aunt and uncle are in their 70s now, but they still live on Taney Avenue in Alexandria.
Okay, so you mentioned you have a sister.
have a
Do you have
sister.
any other siblings?
I have a younger brother as well.
A
So
younger
we're all
brother.
4 years apart. So my sister's 40, I'm 36, and my brother's 32.
She's going to get you for that, but
Yes.
that's okay.
She just turned 40, and she's happy about turning 40.
Hey, amen to that. Now, you talk about yourself as a family. You've just described your family. So, as a Hutchings, did you all have any traditions that you celebrated growing up?
Growing up, I think that one big tradition, I mean, of course, Christmas and
Yes.
Thanksgiving were our big times
Right.
where family came together. We would always go to Philadelphia for Christmas to visit my grandmother.
Oh, okay.
So that was, I guess, a family tradition. And my mom and dad in my earlier years would always go to Englishtown, which was an area where it's like outlets and they could get discounted clothing and toys and that type of thing. So it was always a tradition for them to go to Englishtown. And then I think that was somewhere near Philadelphia. I'm assuming it was. I don't even know where Englishtown is because I've never been. But then we would always have Christmas at my grandmother's house in Philadelphia. But my parents, they did get a divorce
Okay.
at 7. So our traditions, family traditions, kind of transitioned from being in Philadelphia to more so being with my mom at home here in
Okay.
Alexandria.
Now, give me an image. I want an image of Greg, the little boy, as a child. What were you like? Can you describe yourself?
Yeah. Well, that's funny. I think that my grandmother has always said I've been here before.
Oh,
She would say
okay.
I had an old soul. I was very mature, even as a young child. And when my parents got a divorce when I was 7, my grandmother told me that I was the man of the house. And when she told me that, I literally took that to heart. So in second grade, I used to carry a red canvas briefcase to school like I was, the man of the house. And still to this day, my mom tells me that I'm always acting as if I'm her father, and I ask her too many questions, and that I'm always giving her advice on what needs to be done. Not just her, but also my other family members. So I think as a young child, I was very mature. I was also very talkative. My teachers will tell you that I love to talk and I love to challenge authority. So in some cases, I was borderline disrespectful to some to some adults. I would get in trouble in class, always for being too talkative and questioning authority with teachers. So I would always want to know why.
Well,
What did being the man of the house mean to you at 7? Like, what did you think that meant?
Being the man of a house, I think at 7, I felt like I couldn't get a job, but I felt like I was supposed to be the man that brought money into the household, that made the rules, that pretty much told people what to do in the house and protected my mom.
okay.
So, I took that to heart at 7. So I would I was my mom's protector. I still am,
All right.
until today. And I'm constantly telling everybody what to do. And that's probably why I went into, always leadership roles because I want to be able to tell people, what to do.
Like, do you have a specific memory of telling people what to do or protecting your mother?
Oh, yes. I have tons of those. I would say that telling people what to do in the mornings, I would always get everybody up in the morning.
Okay.
My sister, she was older than me, but I would get everybody up in the morning. I would tell people, my little brother, I would pick out my clothes. I would help him get dressed. I was kind of like his dad, for many years. And I would make sure we all had breakfast in the morning. And then we would go off, to school. So I would walk my brother to school. I'd also walk him home every day from school. And those were just some of the things that I would do. In regards to my mom and protecting her, I think that, when she began to date,
Oh.
I would say that, Mom, I need to meet the person that you're going to be dating before you go out.
Now, how old were you when you started this?
I was probably about 9 when my mom started dating. And it's only 2 guys that I know the 2 guys that I met that she dated, and one she ended up marrying.
Right.
But I recall saying, I need to give you the thumbs up on whether or not you can continue to see these men or not.
So she needed to have your blessing.
She needed to have my blessing and my approval before she proceeded.
Wow.
And she actually listened to me, believe it or not, because we would make their lives miserable with the first guy,
I know that's right.
and the second. My stepdad, we made his life miserable too. But that's how kids, kids are. I feel bad for some of the things we did.
Now, do you have a best memory of your childhood, a favorite memory?
My favorite memory would be the summers going to my grandmother's house in Dayton, Ohio.
Okay.
Every summer we would go to Dayton, and my grandmother, this is my mom's mother, and I was able to be with my cousins, and it was a totally different feel than this area. This was the city
Right.
for me, whereas Dayton, Ohio was more, I used to call it the country, but it's
Yes.
actually a city too. But, we had parks, and we had a lunch truck that would come to the park every day. So we were able to go run over to the lunch truck and get our lunch every day, and we would play with their parks and recs, and we would stay out all day, and I would hang out with my friends. And because, it didn't get dark until about 8 or 9 at night,
Right.
I felt like I had 12 hours outside, all summer long in the heat, which it didn't bother us back then.
Of course not.
But I think that was my most fond memories.
Now, you've mentioned your grandmother
Yes.
quite a bit, so I take it she was one of your favorite relatives.
She really was. My grandmother, my mom's mother, Granny,
Granny?
is my grandmother. So she would always tell me that I was going to be something great. She would always tell me that I would be the first doctor in our family or the first lawyer in our family. She always told me it was something special about me, and that she was always proud of me. So she, I think, had a serious impact, on my life. I believe on my life in regards to my family.
What's her name?
Janet Mullins. And she actually passed away back in 2001 from breast cancer. But she was, I think, the rock. She raised 7 children by herself. My grandfather I never got to meet. He died from kidney failure. I think he was about 41 or 42.
Wow.
So my youngest aunt she wasn't one when he passed away. She didn't, turn the age of 1 when he passed away. So my grandmother was left with 7 kids to raise by herself. And people at that time came in saying, well, we can separate the kids up and we'll take, and she said, no, I'm going to raise all my children in our house together. And she was adamant about that, and she did it. She raised 7 children,
Strong woman.
Strong woman, very strong woman. And she did not, which I found out later in life, she didn't graduate from high school. But I thought that she was one of the most brilliant people I ever met. She read the newspaper every day. She was an avid reader, so she loved books, and she watched the news and television, and I had to watch The Price is Right, Young and the Restless, and everything else, with her growing up. But she was, I think, the rock of our family.
What did she look like?
My grandmother was tall. She was a tall, skinny woman. She was about 5'9", which is tall for a woman. And I think she's probably more like 5'11", but she always
With
said that
her
she got
heels
shorter
on.
as she got older. But she was a very tall, lean woman, and she loved to always have her nails painted. And she was very particular about how she looked. She had to present herself well when she left the house. And she always told us that when you leave the house, you always need to look your best.
Right.
Whether you're going to church or going down the street to the store, you need to always look your best when you leave the house. And she always did that. And my grandmother, she was a mild-spoken woman, but she would stand up for what she believed in. She rarely raised her voice, and she didn't have to, but she would give it to you straight, when she needed to.
She had that presence. Now, did you ever witness a time when she had exhibited a raising of the voice?
I'm trying to think. I think that of her raising her voice.
Or did she just have this look about her? Did
She could just have a facial expression that was like raising her voice. Granny, she could look at you and say, you could hear her telling you to sit down and be quiet with just her facial expressions.
Okay.
So I don't know if she ever had to really raise her voice. I don't recall her raising her voice.
Impressive.
Ever, but she always got what she wanted, and we always respected her.
Understood.
She was a very strong woman, very strong woman. I think I have 6 aunts, so she had 6 girls and 1 boy, my Uncle Ronnie, which I felt sorry for him in the household of all women. But all of my aunts are very strong women, and they are all, when my wife and I got married, they were all at my wedding, and they're like on the sideline, like making sure that you're going to my wife is going to come in and take care of, of their nephew.
That's right.
And they approved of my wife too, so they love my wife.
Now, because I want to get to the how Dr. Hutchings became Dr. Hutchings, can you tell me which schools you attended, elementary, junior high, high school in Alexandria?
Yes, I was a transient student, but I started my educational career at Patrick Henry Elementary.
Okay.
And my kindergarten teacher, Miss McKenzie, who happens to be here, today, was, I think, one of the most influential people in my life as well. Because at 5 years old, she told me that I could be the first black president of the United States. And she pulled me out in the hallway. I was very talkative, as I said. And she pulled me out in the hallway, and she said, you can take this energy, and you can take your leadership qualities and your ability, and you could be the first black president. And she said, so I want you to go in there with your chest pushed out and your head high, and I want you to lead this class and not disrupt the class.
Okay.
And when she told me that, I think that changed the trajectory of my life. Because I believed that anything was possible. And when I had my mother and my grandmother and teachers along the way who were able to tell me those same words, I think that helped me become the person I was. But I started out at Patrick Henry Elementary. I was there for 1 year for kindergarten, and then I went to James K. Polk Elementary for first grade. And then we moved to the other side of town, the east side of town, in Warwick Village. And I attended Mount Vernon Elementary School from 2nd until 5th grade. And then we moved back to the west side of town. This is post-divorce, and my mom, we could no longer afford, she couldn't afford to live in a house by herself, so we had to move to an apartment.
Okay.
On the west side of town is where we had the apartment, so I went to William Ramsey Elementary for 6th grade.
Okay.
And then at that time, Francis C. Hammond was a junior high school, so I went there from 7th through 9th grade, and then I went to T.C. Williams from 10th through 12th grade.
Wow.
So I've been at a number of schools here in Alexandria.
Now, you say you were a talkative student. If your classmates had to describe you, what would they say?
They would describe me as talkative or outgoing. They wouldn't say talkative. They would say very outgoing. In high school, I was most likely to succeed and best dressed
That I can believe.
in high school. So I think that's how they would probably describe me. In high school, I was the senior class vice president and also the prom king at T.C. Williams. And, I think I have a story to share with that as well, because in 10th grade, I was actually denied access to honors classes because I didn't have the grades or the test scores. And my counselor told me that I couldn't be in honors classes, and I felt that I wanted to go to college. And the classes that I was in, the general education classes, the teacher would read the newspaper, kids would act out and would talk, and there were fights in class sometimes. And I felt like if I was going to be something, I was going to need to have access to those honors classes. So I went and did a petition
No.
and walked around the school and got students to sign this petition. And I took it to Mr. Porter, John Porter, who was the principal at the time,
Right.
who was still a wonderful mentor for me and friend and colleague. But I went to Mr. Porter and said, Mr. Porter, your students believe in me. And I know that what the rules say about being in honors classes, but I'm hoping that you will override that and allow me to, enroll in honors. And Mr. Porter looked at this petition, and I don't remember how many signatures I got, but it was a number of signatures. And he took me down to the school counseling office, and he signed me up for honors classes. And I think that was another moment that allowed me to realize that I had a voice, and if I spoke up for something, that someone would listen, and that anything was possible. And I think that allowed me to go on to become the senior class vice president and the prom king. I don't know if I would have had the tenacity to do that if it wasn't for Mr. Porter changing my schedule and allowing me to take those honors courses.
When they originally said no, what were you thinking and feeling?
I was feeling anger. I was angry for and I still get angry when people tell me no. I always say yes. I think that has become the fuel for my fire. And when I heard no, in my mind, I was saying, oh, yes, I will, because this is something that I feel I need in order to get to the next level. So there was some anger there. And then I felt, rejoiceful when Mr. Porter was able to take me down, and, I smiled at the counselor to say, well, now I'm enrolled in that class. Now, I got C's all the way through in my honors classes, so I wasn't an AB honor student, but I still passed my honors classes.
Right.
And I was able to go off, to college and get a scholarship because of that.
Now, where'd you go to college?
Undergrad, I went to Old Dominion University and also Hampton University. I started out at ODU my freshman year, and then I had a girlfriend at the time who went to Hampton. So I said, well, I'm going to transfer to Hampton University. So unbeknownst to my mom, I come home this summer and I say, I'm going to Hampton in the fall. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, well, I've already sent a transfer application and everything and turned in my financial aid information, and I'm going to be going to Hampton University. So my mom found that out over summer break, and I started out at Hampton, and we broke up at Hampton. And after that year, I went right back to Old Dominion because I said I didn't want to see her face anymore. So I went back to ODU, which was my initial school of choice. And then I went on to get my master's at George Mason University, and then I have my doctorate from the College of William and Mary.
All right. Now, how did you decide to pursue a degree in education? Because, listening to you, I'm sold on the fact that you could have been the first Black president.
Yes. Excuse me. It's funny because I had a lot of different majors.
Okay.
As I was a transient student, I had a lot of different aspirations. Initially in high school, there was a movie, Boomerang, that starred Eddie Murphy.
Yes.
And I said I was going to be Marcus from Boomerang. I'm going to be a marketing executive. I'm going to make commercials. I'm going to sell these commercials, and I'm going to be famous. And then I went into saying I'm going to be an engineer.
Okay.
And then I said I was going to be a doctor, an emergency medical doctor,
Okay.
emergency physician. And I got to ODU, and my junior year, Dr. Ake, organic chemistry.
Oh.
First day of class, he told everyone, if you cannot pass this class, you can't go to medical school. And I tried to pass this class 3 times. And I finally realized that medical school is not calling my name. So I went to my my advisor, and my advisor said, you have all these math and science courses. Have you thought about math and science education? And I said, no, but I need to graduate on time, so I'll do math and science education. And that's what I did. So I declared my major as math and science education. And when I graduated, I was actually an admissions counselor for Old Dominion University. And I thought I was going to be the director of admissions. It was higher education, so it was still in the education field. And I got promoted to the Northern Virginia representative within my first year there. And they moved me up to Northern Virginia, which is back into my hometown. And this was a new department, so there wasn't a lot to do at that time. Like, we didn't have partnerships yet. I just got an office. The building wasn't completely renovated yet. And she wasn't my wife at the time, but my girlfriend, who's now my wife, I called her and I said, I don't have any work to do here, and I need stuff to do. So I'm about to quit this job and find another job. And she's thinking they're paying you $30,000, which was a lot to me. I was like, $30,000? They're paying you $30,000 to sit and do nothing? You need to keep that job. And I felt like I needed to work. I had so many things that I wanted to do. And I have remembered there was a principal when I was doing my recruitment fair who came up to me. Her name was Joyce Sigmundson. And she said, you would be an excellent teacher. Have you ever thought about teaching? And I said, well, I actually have a degree in math and science education. And, I'll take your card and maybe one day I'll give you a call. She said, do that. Call me. Well, I remembered that conversation. And I called Miss Sigmundson, and it was about October of 2000 at that time. And I called her and I said I was considering a career change, and did she still have openings? And she said, I actually do. I have a 5th grade opening. Why don't you come in and interview with me? And I think it was sometime that week. I don't remember the exact day. So I walk in, and she offered me the job on the spot. She said, I would love for you to come in, but there is a catch. She said, school has already started. We don't really have a classroom for you, but I'm going to take you down to this room, which is kind of like our storage room, and can you change it and make it a classroom? So she said, I will give you 2 weeks to get all that together, and then our teachers are going to determine what students are going to be in your class. Oh. So I said, okay. So I move into this closet that I transform into a classroom. No windows, by the way. No windows in the room, so it was dark. So I remember going to the teacher store and buying all the little posters, and then the kids arrive, and I get all of the kids that the teachers had some challenges with.
Of course.
And I want to say it was probably about 20 kids that I had. So I'm thinking, these kids walked in and they were talking and they were crying because they were leaving their friends from their other classes, and school had already started. Who was this man coming in, taking me from my teacher? And everyone was angry and upset. And I sat and I looked at the class and I said, I am responsible for all of these kids. Wow, this is a huge, huge responsibility. And I didn't have kids and wasn't married at that time. So I said, I'm going to make it work. And I rolled my sleeves up that year. And every last one of our kids passed the SOL, 5th grade, that were in my class.
All right.
And unfortunately that year, our school was overstaffed, and we opened a new school. And I was the last person hired, so I was the first one to go, and I had to move to a different school that year. But River Oaks Elementary School in Prince William County was my first year teaching, and I would say one of my best years of teaching, because that year, as a teacher, I went to Miss Sigmundson my first year teaching and told her I wanted to be a principal. And she laughed. And she said, "You just got it. I just got you here into teaching." And I said, "I know, but I really want to make a bigger difference. I'm working with 20 kids, but I want to change a school, you know." And that summer, I actually pursued my master's in educational leadership at George Mason. And Miss Sigmundson, she didn't believe it. She told me, "No, you need 5 more years of teaching." And once I hear no, it always
Spurs you on.
it does. And I went in to get my master's after my first year teaching. 2 years later, I graduated with my master's. And a year after that, I became an assistant principal.
Well, you've now come full circle. You attended Alexandria City Public Schools, and you become one of the educators here. What was it like to initially come back to Alexandria as an educator?
To come back, I think it was rewarding for me, because when I left Alexandria, literally I had my bags packed. I graduated from high school June 20th, 1995. My bags were packed on June 20th. I didn't leave for college until like August 14th or 15th. But they were sitting at my door. I had this trunk that I went and I purchased, and I had my, comforter and everything. And I was ready to go. And I said, I'm never coming back to Alexandria once I leave here. So when I left, Mr. Porter, he actually called me a few times to come back. And I told him no every time. But when I finally did come back as the director of middle schools, it was rewarding for me, because I felt like it was my opportunity to give back to the community that made me the person I was. And it took me to, go to Prince William County and Richmond and Nashville, Tennessee, to realize that this was my hometown and this was my foundation. And it was an honor for me to come back and give my service.
Now, did you ever run into yourself, a mini-me?
I did. I've seen a lot of mini-me's, and I've, adopted a lot of mini-me's throughout, the years. And I continue to encourage them to remain that person, but just be a little more refined. You need to be outspoken. You need to speak your mind. You need to be vocal.
Right.
But you need to be respectful. And there's a way to get your point across. And I always think that action speaks louder than words. So to back up what you say, you have to also do. And that's what I try to encourage a lot of the mini-me's that are out there to do.
Well, as the director of the Alexandria Library, I've had the pleasure of working with you. And so I, for one, am happy for you, but I'm also sad because I know you are getting ready to leave Alexandria and start on a new venture in Ohio.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little about that?
Yes, this is a life goal for me.
Okay.
My life goal was to become a superintendent.
Okay.
And initially, I thought I was going to be the first African-American superintendent in Alexandria.
Okay.
And that was one of the reasons Dr. Sherman interviewed me here in Alexandria, why he sought after me to come here, because he read an article where I was quoted. I was going to be the first black superintendent in Alexandria. But now I'm able to be the first African-American superintendent of Shaker Heights. And I know that it was a part of my mission. I really feel like I was called to do this job. It was something that literally I was told about a few months ago. And when I looked at the leadership profile for the superintendency in Shaker Heights, I saw my name over the entire document. Like every line, I felt like that was something that I've done or something I've been prepared for throughout my career to do. And when I took my wife up there, because my wife said, we have to visit before you even apply. I need to make sure that's a place I want to live, because you moved me all over this country and I'm not moving anymore. So when we got up to Shaker Heights and we drove around the neighborhoods, and they were tree-lined neighborhoods, and 85% of their homes are historic buildings. And they, the schools look very prestigious because they're built in the 20s and 30s.
Right.
my wife said, this is a place we can raise our family. And literally, when I got back home, I applied, and I think that was the deadline for applications, and I applied for the job. And about a month later, I was called to do a phone interview, and then I was called in to do a face-to-face, and then I was called back to meet with the school board, and then I was called to meet with the community,
Wow.
and then I was actually offered the job about 2 months later. And I think that from the moment I heard about the opportunity in Shaker Heights to the moment I accepted the offer, I knew that was what I was supposed to do. And I know that great things are going to happen in Shaker Heights. And I believe it's going to take at least 10 years for us to completely close the achievement gap in Shaker Heights city schools. But I believe we're going to be the exemplar for school districts across the nation. And in 10 to 15 years from now, I'll be called by the president to become the U.S. Secretary of Education.
Rose, so how does it feel to lose him?
Like I said,
Does it feel like a loss, I guess?
it's a huge loss. As the first African American director of the Alexandria Library, I can relate on so many levels with Greg. And so we have had the opportunity to work together where there was a relationship with the schools, but not at the level it has become in working with Greg in his role, and as well as with Mady Henson in her role with ACPS. And so I sort of am nervous because I'm afraid that these inroads that we've had, I mean, one of the biggest successes came about last year when we did all Alexandria reads,
Yes.
and we selected the same book. And so we came together. We had more than 9,000 people commit to read that book within the city, and the participation was just phenomenal. And that we've done all Alexandria reads for 5 years, but nothing had happened at that level until we worked with the school system, and a lot of that had to do with Greg. So I commend Shaker Heights because I think that they have a real jewel coming there. But for Alexandria, I truly am going to miss you. I'm curious, though, to know how, you mentioned your wife because your family means a lot to you. I know that. And how many kids do you have?
We have 2 kids.
2 kids.
So we have a 7-year-old, Micah. She'll be 8 next week, May 27th. And then we have a 3-year-old, Gregory III.
And so this whole move, the change what it's going to mean to them.
Well, they were a part of selecting the house that we're moving to.
Okay.
We took them up there about a month ago to visit and to look at homes. And the first house, well, actually it was the second house we visited. They ran all over the house, and they started selecting their rooms, and they were playing out in the backyard. And we went and we visited about 18 other homes. And that was the house we chose because the kids, they didn't do that at any other home. But they love the house that we chose. And they're very excited about moving to Shaker Heights. I think that Micah, she is used to moving now because we moved her at 5 here. And I think that she's excited about being closer. I have an aunt and uncle and cousin that live in Cleveland Heights, and they live in Cleveland Heights. So she's excited about visiting or seeing them more, and she's excited about visiting new schools and meeting new people. So she's happy. Now Gregory, he's only 3,
Yes.
so he's just happy because Micah's happy. He follows his big sister, so I think that they're very excited about the move.
So where Alexandria City Public Schools are concerned, how would you like to be remembered?
How would I like to be remembered? I hope that I'm remembered as someone who believes that all children can do anything and that anything is honestly possible. There was a quote that I've heard someone say, and I forgot who quoted it, but it was something about people not remembering what you say and not remembering the things that you do, but they remember how you made them feel.
Oh, okay.
And I hope that people will remember that, I was able to inspire you and to be the best that, you could be, and to know that anything was possible. So I just hope that people remember that about me. Because like I said, they'll forget the things that I've said, and they'll forget some of the things that I've done. But I'm hoping that they'll always, when they think of me, they'll have good feelings about how I made them feel.
Now, I've talked a lot about your accomplishments and everything. What does Greg do to have fun?
What do I do to have fun?
Yes.
I have fun by making other people happy, which is funny. But I also play golf,
Oh,
and I love to travel. My wife loves to travel. So we do a lot of traveling.
any interesting places?
Yes, we've been to Jamaica and Bermuda and
Oh,
the
warm weather.
Bahamas. Yeah, we love the Caribbean. We love beaches, even though we don't hang out on the beach the whole time. We just love to be near a beach. So we love to visit, Caribbean areas, Mexico, the Dominican Republic. So places like that. We're planning to go to Europe in a year.
Okay.
So that's our next big, travel experience. So those are the things that I really love to do. So traveling, golf, and spending time with family and friends.
Now, because I know that you're a family man, can you tell me what your proudest moment as from a personal perspective, and then your proudest moment from a professional perspective?
Yes, I would say my proudest moment would be marrying my wife.
It was.
It really was. I don't think that I would be the person that I am without her. She pushes me. She encourages me. She keeps me humble. She brings me back down when my head gets huge. And when everybody's building me up, she keeps it real. And she supports me no matter what. So I think that was the proudest moment. And then, through that, we were able to have 2 wonderful kids.
Right.
So I would say that's probably the proudest moment of my life.
What's her name?
Cheryl.
And the moment that you guys were actually married, where were you? What was going through your head?
We were married on April 20th, 2002. So 11 years ago, we got married in Norfolk, Virginia, where we met. My wife's from Virginia Beach. I went to school in Norfolk.
Right.
And what was going through my mind that day, I was thinking this was one of the best days of my life because I'm able to marry this woman that she pretty much changed my world. And she allowed me to see things in me and in the world that I didn't see before. And she's always, told me from the beginning that she will be there to support me. And she has. So she's been like, my number one fan and, I think my number one advisor too. I try to make all decisions with her. So I would say that day I felt, happiness, joy, thankfulness, and I felt extremely blessed to have, the woman that she is. And I knew she was going to be my wife when I first met her. Actually, we went on our first date, and I went home and told my roommate, Simon, who's my best friend, and I was like, I just went on a date with my wife. And he was like, whatever. Yeah, right. I was like, no, seriously, this woman is going to be my wife. And my black book that week was gone. My little black book was over. And I was devoted to Cheryl from June. I think our first date was June 19th, 1999.
That's impressive
Until now.
to be able to recall
Yeah.
the actual day.
I remember our first date.
What was it about that date? Like, was there a moment at that date that it clicked that you knew?
It was the vibes. I felt really good vibes from her. And I felt like she was a very intelligent woman. And I knew I was always going to marry somebody who was beautiful, who was really, really smart, who was smarter than me. And someone who just made me feel good. And she did those things. Like I knew I was like, this woman is brilliant, like she was very intellectual, and she was a beautiful brown woman with long
Where'd
hair.
you go on this first date?
We went to, I'm trying to think of the name of the restaurant, the Bienville Grill. It no longer exists, but it was in Norfolk, in the Ghent area of Norfolk. And we still have the tablecloth from our first, she kept it. I drew a picture of her, and I'm not an artist, but I drew a picture of her on, it was like white paper as a tablecloth for
Right.
this restaurant. And they give
Right.
you crayons to kind
Right.
of doodle. So I drew a picture of her, and I wrote our date of our first date. And she kept it. So I think that she thought I was the one too.
Well, Greg, it has been a pleasure. Good luck with the job in Shaker Heights. I, for one, do believe in you and think that you're going to go on to do amazing things, not just at Shaker Heights, but beyond that. And I would love for you, when you get that call, to contact me, and maybe we'll have a chance to work together again.
Exactly. We will. We will. Thank you. And I appreciate this opportunity. And it's definitely an honor and privilege for me to be able to share my story, with the people. And I hope that I'll have many more stories to share because I have some very fond memories. So thanks for the opportunity.
Wonderful. All right. I now get a hug.
Yes. Got to give her a hug.